If Henry was such good friends with Joey Drew, why did he leave the studio? Did he have a big fight with Joey or something? Well, watch on, because the true answer might shock you.
Oh my god. Joey, what were you doing?
Another Bendy and the Ink Machine theory? You betcha! If you're new, remember to subscribe and tap that bell for more bendy and horror game theories that actually make sense. Let's start with what we know. We know that the conditions at Joey Drew's cartoon studio have worsened over the last 30 years. We also know that Joey Drew was becoming more obsessed with his dreams around the time that the audio tapes were made. Joey Drew was not taking very good care of his studio. And finally, the workers at the cartoon studio were all starting to change in weird ways. Got all those facts? Now let's bring it all together. Before fully understanding Henry's side of the story, we need to understand a couple of things about Joey Drew and his plans with his studio. Throughout Bendy and the Ink Machine, we learned that Joey Drew's cartoon studio was both built up and breaking apart since Henry left. This is because as we move from department to department, Henry finds that he doesn't recognize the size of the studio from when he last worked there. But at the same time, we as the player can see that the studio is clearly falling apart. However, if the studio was built upon in only the last 30 years before the events of the game, everything at the studio should still be pretty sturdy. Sure, there could be a buildup of cobwebs and dust and other nasties all over the place, but it's strange that it's aged so quickly that it's falling apart. Why? Remember that when taking the demon path in Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 3, Henry comes across a tape that Joey himself created. This tape reveals that Joey believes any dream can become a reality with enough effort, even if it came to achieving eternal life. In other words, he believes that dreams come true at any cost. No, literally, any cost. When performing Alice Angel's missions in Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 3, Alice gives Henry an axe. Using this axe, we can open up a secret room that seems to have belonged to an accountant or bookkeeper by the name of Grant Cohen. Whether it is his room or not, it is clear that he left a tape behind that proves he is worried about Joey Drew's obsession, and he mentions that Joey has a top secret project which could break the budget of the studio. This confirms that Joey Drew would spend whatever he could to get what he wants, and it also gives reason behind why he spent money on building further on the studio. For those who didn't catch our theory on what Alice's true plans are, exploring the staircase in Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 3 reveals that there could be more than one ink machine, which means that High Roller Joey is also buying multiple ink machines on top of the massive ink pipe network at the studio. Now that we know for sure that Joey was pouring money into upgrading the studio to make his dreams come true, why is it so broken down? Well, Joey wasn't doing as good a job with his spending as you might think. The Chapter 3 update introduced the maintenance man at the studio, Thomas Connor. According to Thomas,
Mr. Joey Drew keeps cutting corners like this,
which indicates that Joey was being cheap when it came to his top secret project. This is further confirmed in another of Thomas's recordings, where he says that
whoever thought that these crummy pipes could hold up under this kind of strain either knows something about pressure I don't, or he's some kind of idiot.
This confirms that Joey was cutting costs by hiring incompetent builders for his ink machine project. Together, all of this suggests that the ink machines costed so much money to build that Joey couldn't afford to properly pay for the rest of the building costs, such as the ink pipes, the elevator, and the extra areas in the studio. This brings us back to Henry. What does all of this have to do with him leaving? Was he upset that the ceiling might have been falling apart? Possibly, but this isn't the only reason. Since Henry had left before the upgrade to the studio, all of this shouldn't have affected him, right? Not exactly. Since Joey was working with Grant Cohen to make sure all of his money was spent in the places that he really wanted, Henry would have stuck around during the planning stages. In this time, Henry would have noticed that it was becoming less and less pleasant to work at the studio, especially since he wasted so much time drawing Bendy at his desk.
Hey, here's my old desk. I wasted so much time in this chair.
On top of this, other workers were noticing that Joey was taking less and less care of them because he wouldn't have had the money to do otherwise. This is confirmed in one of Susie Campbell's recordings, where she says that times were tougher than she thought at the studio.
Apparently times are tougher than I thought.
And also in one of Wally Frank's recordings, where he says that everyone is so depressed around the studio.
I don't get it. Everyone's walking around here like Grandma just died. Nothing but angry faces everywhere.
As a side note, these things might also confirm why Susie was replaced by Alison Pendle. Perhaps Alison was just cheaper to hire for longer. That's a whole other story, but let's not forget the creepy messages that are written around the studio, especially the creator lied to us, dreams come true, and we don't want to work here anymore. Assuming that Joey is the creator, these messages seem to be targeted at Joey Drew and show just how upset the workers were with his decisions. Interestingly, it's a bit odd that Wally Frank seems to be a-okay about all of this. This is probably because as the janitor, he would have been paid the lowest of them all, and either probably didn't suffer as much of a pay cut or wasn't cut at all. Still, in chapter 1, he complains about the pipes bursting, and in his chapter 2 recording, he still fears being fired by his higher-ups, so he is surely being affected by these changes too. But that's not all. If it wasn't enough that everyone would be underpaid and that Joey was starting to cut corners all around the studio, there was also one more insane thing that Joey did to throw salt on the wound. In chapter 3, turning the hidden pipe valve on level 14 allows us to access a secret room with a special recording by Henry. In this recording, Henry says that Joey gives more than he takes.
When I agreed to start this whole thing with him, I thought there'd be a little more give and take. Instead, I give, and he takes.
He is simply a man of ideas, and only ideas. All of this shows that Joey was squeezing as much work out of his workers as possible without paying them what they deserved or taking care of them the way that they should have been. Joey Drew was a slave driver that poured as much money as possible into making his dreams coming true, rather than letting everyone else rise with him. And Henry, being Joey's business partner and in all of his wisdom, saw what was coming and took off. Susie Campbell, on the other hand, had other plans. Tap this video to find out why, or check out these videos which were picked just for you. If you're new, tap my face to subscribe and to tap that bell for more bendy and horror game theories that actually make sense. Prodigies, I hope these videos help to expand on how you think. See ya!